Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer of some 35 years' experience. Uh, I've also held the position of the president of the Council of Vedic Astrology, and I've written a variety of articles and am working on a book on Vedic astrology right now. Uh, I will be appearing November 30th on Saptarishi's Master Teachers uh, podcast. So if you're interested in that, so go to Saptarishi Astrology in India.com. Sunil John is another alternate search for that. So also I'm planning to have a longtime friend of mine, Ken Miller, as a guest in December. Ken and I go back some 30 years now, I think. And so we've been good friends for a long time. And he's an astrologer I really respect and admire. And so it will be a great pleasure to have him on the show. Um, I'm also planning to have some other folks on over the next few months. And we'll see what happens from there. If you would like lessons or a reading, please contact me at 508-525-0001 or at Gary Gomes G. That's my name, Gary Gomes G. It's not transcribing properly. Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. Again, that's Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. Okay. So you can text me at the phone number. You can look me up on WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp as well. So you can text me a message there as well. This week I'm going to focus a little bit on New York City. I haven't had time, so there was a big, uh, I would call it an election shift. Is also what I would call a power base shift or a small power base shift in the Democratic Party. Uh, so, um, so we're undergoing a similar shift in the Democratic Party to what happened with MAGA in the Republican Party about 10 years ago. And so the progressives, who up until recently were relatively small contingent of the Democratic Party, seems to be moving into very influential positions right now. So that's been coming for quite a while. That's not a new phenomenon, but this is the first. This is, I would say, the biggest electoral victory they had with Mamdani being elected mayor of New York City. But I did want to look at New York City just briefly before I go into the week and just explain what's going on with New York City right now. So let me share that map with you. Also, please, while I'm at it, please uh, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and please share this broadcast with your friends. Uh, so we have passed 1,000 subscriptions. I'm very happy about that, but we do need more. And so I'm not asking anybody to send me any money right now. Okay, so that's unusual. I'm hoping to build it up through subscriptions, and so so I know there are some podcasts who have tip jars, and I may consider that at some point in the future, but not right now. So let me just go on to the chart in question. Let's look at that. All right, so let me pull up New York City's chart. This is their birth chart. Okay, you may see a black screen. I'm off screen for a few seconds. Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. Uh, Sometimes the screen, as I've said before, sometimes the screen doesn't come up immediately. It's on now. So we have um, this is the New York City chart. Now, this is taken from a very dubious birth time. I'm not sure I fully trust it. It was taken, I believe, from the Astrology website. And they have the birth date of New York City. I guess the consolidated birth date of New York City is being January 1st, 1898. It should be at noon, uh, at 12 at midnight. So let me fix that. That's wrong. Okay, so I'm going to fix that right now. 12 a.m. All right, so let's do this. Sometimes you can think you have the right thing and you just don't. So let's pull it up. All right, so this is interesting. So, okay, so two important things to note about New York right now. Um, New York, so if we're going through Saturn cycles, so this gives New York a Virgo rising sign, which would not seem to be that likely because New York is considered as being kind of a rambunctious city. But look at where we have Jupiter in the first house, so that's going to make it very popular, very sort of like uh, a guidance city for the country. It's in the United States. Its rising sign is in the United States 10th house, which is a house of action. And look at where the Lord of so Mercury rules the first house in New York City's chart, and it ends up in Capricorn retrograde along with Rahu. So we have a retrograde Mercury right now. It just starts today. Actually, I think we're still in a direct period. It'll come either later on today or tomorrow. I can let you know right now. Hold on a second. Yeah, Mercury's still direct right now. It'll start going retrograde later on today. And the other thing is we have Mercury's with Rahu, which is sort of a greedy or sensationalistic planet. And it's in the fifth house of entertainment. So New York is known as an entertainment center. It's known as a center connected with the arts. So the fifth house rulership makes incredible sense. Saturn aspects that fixed house. It's not going to change that status anytime soon. And Venus, Sun, and Mars are in the fourth house. So its relationships with the government aren't that great. Now, one of the things, and right now I'm sorry, right now, at least according to this birth information, which I said is suspect, uh, New York City is in a Venus, Mercury, Saturn subperiod. Now, what does that mean in plain English? Well, Venus is in the fourth house, so it's essentially Venus is a more socialistic planet than, let's say, Jupiter is. It's more connected with um, redistribution of wealth. It's more connected with community. It's more connected with essentially trying to create heaven on earth. So that's the mentality that New York City is working from right now. This Venus Mahadasha started actually relatively recently. So it started in 2022. So it's been moving more leftward since 2022. Before that, it was in a K2 Mahadasha. K2 is in um, the eighth house. So, so, so New York was going through a variety of problems connected with finances even a few years ago. But now it's in a Venus major planetary period. So, and it's interesting that it's in the house of property because that's where a lot of Mamdani's uh, property and community. So it's the fourth house. So it's essentially the Sun-Venus conjunction. A lot of beautiful people are in New York. A lot of aggressive people are in New York with that Mars there. And also, well, one other thing, I'm just going to go to this very quickly because I'm a little sick today, so I don't want to spend more time on this than I have to. So it's a cold, it's nothing serious. So essentially, what happens here is we have that Rahu Mercury in the fifth house. It's going to make New York a little greedy. Venus and Mars are in the fourth house. Again, it's going to make it a little bit artistic, very sensitive, very socially conscious, all those kinds of things. And again, Jupiter's in the first house. That does let it is essentially, or it has been considered essentially the gateway to the United States for many, many years before Mexico and other parts of the country started. Um, there was migration before that, so this is the legal migration point. Let's put it that way. So Jupiter promises a lot. You know, the old line, if you can make it, if I can make it here, I'll make it anywhere. So it's very competitive, um, and also very, very unusual. It considers itself in the forefront of things. So I visited New York, how many times? Three times. Um, and I've driven through more times than that. But I've actually spent New York City, excuse me, I've actually spent um, basically, I went to the expo in the World Expo in I think it was in 1964 with my parents, and I went down in around 1970 with some friends from college to see a concert. And I also went in the 1990s on a mission for a friend down there, and an errand for a friend down there. So I have some. I'm not at all familiar with the inner workings in New York. I've just been you know a hit or miss kind of a person. I've driven through it several times, both with my father and on my own. So that's not really. Um, it's not unknown to me. It's just um, but I can't claim familiarity with the city. But I have visited it. Let's put it that way. So so essentially, both as a tourist and as a tourist, as a critic, and as a customer. So so essentially, this particular placement over here. One of the things I would like to bring your attention to, though, is the moon. And so we're in this Venus, Mercury, Saturn subperiod right now. So let's get back to that for a second. Saturn is in the third house of desire. So this is a desire to bring order or structure to uh, social environment. New York's a very expensive city in which to live right now. It always has been an expensive city, but it's gotten crazily expensive over the past few years. And I think so. That's one of the appeals. Obviously, a candidate like Mamdani would have, in that he's trying to make the city more affordable. So that's fair enough. So that alone will essentially allow him to break with tradition. The sixth house is interesting because we have Rahu in the sixth house right now by transit, and we have Saturn in the 12th house from the moon by transit. Now, one of the things that I did when I actually did do a little bit more research than normal for this chart. Um, then, uh, so, so essentially, I went back to 30 years ago when the Saturn transits were occurring at the same point in space. So, um, New York is in what's called a 7.5 year period of Saturn. Saturn's aspecting his first house, it's aspecting his fourth house. So Saturn tends to destroy whatever planet is, that's hyperbolic, but that's pretty accurate. Destroy whatever planet it's looking at, and also it can destroy the institutions of that particular uh, chart, of that particular city. So we have somebody who's proposing to flip a lot of the institutions in the city or change them around and make the city more affordable, which is a good idea. But it's also Saturn is also hitting, and I've spoken about this point before in various conversations I've had. Saturn is also passing over the yogi point in New York's chart, which is essentially the prosperity point in the chart. So Saturn is going to be in this sign for another couple of years. Interestingly enough, the last time Saturn was in this sign was in the late, uh, was around 1998. And I also looked at the 1990s um, for New York City and the 1970s for New York City, not astrologically, but in terms of what was happening down there. Both times, high crime rate, high unemployment rate, uh, large cost of living. As a matter of fact, in 1975, when the last time Saturn was in a comparable position, Saturn was actually, I think, in New York City's second in the house, or or a little bit beyond that. They were essentially asking for money to allay a bankruptcy. So let me just check that. So I'm gonna go. Want to flip the chart and look and see for 1975. That was when both both Ford and then Carter turned down loans to New York. 1975. Yeah, I'll change the date. Hold on a second. Oh, that's the date. The date's wrong. So Mercury may be retrograde right now. It's the New York. That's the New York chart. We're gonna swap this. Nope, that's not right. Oh, 1975. My apologies. Sorry, folks. Yeah, so in 1975, New York had just come out of its Sati. It was entering what I would call a restructuring time, but its yogi point was afflicted. Okay, so New York crime was up in the 1970s. So that would have reflected 1968 to roughly 19 to 1972. And so there would have been increased crime in New York. Uh, Rahu would have been approaching the first house. So that would have given some problems to New York around that time. 1995, let me just look at 1995. So, and it's interesting because we have some similarities happening in New York in terms of there's a request for a bailout in New York going on right now, and this happened So in the 1990s, um, there were financial crises in New York as well. And after the 7.5 year, and K2 was in the first house, so New York was essentially stuck in place. This was around 1995. And I'm just going to go back to 1970, 1990, and 1970. See how the start off the. Okay, so this is line 1990. So we had Saturn was over here, 1990, 1994. All right, so in 1996, Saturn was in the same position it is in New York right now, and in 19 was in 1968, 1960, and I go with 1969. Yeah, so 1969, Saturn was right over, um, over the moon in New York City. So and Rahu was in the ninth house. So there was a lot of disruption, a lot of violence in the late 1960s in New York. And that actually, the violence had actually started years earlier. Uh, so, so essentially, you had um, uh, during the '60s, a lot of people don't remember, but were were basically there were race riots almost every summer up until the Nixon presidency. And I I think one of the things is that New York's going through a similar period of change. Its population is changing a lot. So but the idea uh, that New York can shift or transform itself, it is undergoing a transformative period, certainly. Economically, it's not a really good time for New York, just in basic terms. And the Venus, this combination of Venus, Mercury, Saturn, it's aimed at the poor people in the city. It's definitely aimed at the people who are either outcasts or poor. But also, I think one of the things is Venus wants to make everybody happy. It's just its nature as a planet. It wants to make sure that everybody has an equal split. So those are the conditions under which Mamdani got elected. And the moon, in all three maps, the moon is afflicted. And also there's a significant 7.5 year period of Saturn going on. So let's pull up the United States chart just for a second. So that Venus, I like Venus as a planet. The unfortunate thing I always see about it is that it tries to make everybody happy. And that's not going to happen. So so it tries to be fair to everybody, but also it's sort of an impossible thing. This is the United States chart. The United States is just coming out, or it's in its last 2 years of a 7.5 year period of Saturn. And actually, the worst of this period have occurred, I would say, between 2022 and 2024 for the United States. But the significant thing about 7.5 year periods of Saturn is the last phase of the 7.5 year period of Saturn takes away anything you don't need. And since I'm going through that myself, I can assure you that actually is manifesting, uh, without getting into details, that's manifesting in my life. So it isn't hurting me so much as it's taking away things I don't need. So I think overall, one of the things you have to look at is these particular Saturn transits when they're happening in your life. They may seem difficult for the time being, but they're actually sort of a good thing in the long run. The United States chart has Saturn aspecting Saturn, so it will make its role as a leader more aggressive. Uh, K2's in the ninth house. There'll be some unpredictability about leadership, or some fear that leaders will be taken away. And Rahu over the moon, at least as far as I can tell, has increased panic. And I'm not saying um, that people shouldn't be worried about that Rahu placement over the moon, but Rahu over the moon always creates what I would call unreasonable panic. So essentially, the best thing you can do when Rahu transits over the moon is, uh, if you're a Hindu, you pray to Durga, or a Christian, you pray to Saint Michael, or to any of the protective angels. And if you're neither of those, essentially what you try to do is take a deep breath and not be so worried that things are going to work out. There'll be disruptions. This is the sign connected with air travel. So that's why we're having air travel control problems or air traffic control problems right now. The government, there's Saturn in the fourth house. The government is, that's the seat of power. The government is essentially shut down for a while. And like I said, I don't expect it to really, I could be surprised. I hope I'm surprised, but really not until around the end of the month before they hit a resolution on this. Um, the other thing is we have Jupiter is over here in the eighth house for the time being. So that indicates, to me at least, a lot of people who had traditionally held power, whose power was threatened, are secretly trying to get it back. Okay, so that's one of the issues we have right now. They're they're conspiring behind the scenes to get the power back. So that's why we're seeing a lot of the same stuff happen in terms of threatening foreign countries. And I'm not saying the president has nothing to do with it. Obviously, the president does, but 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 basically, this is also power, hidden power, reasserting itself with Jupiter in this particular sign. It will get kicked back a little bit after the beginning of the year, and then it'll start to try to reestablish itself over the next year or so. So I think those are the things that I would look out for. Also, I would look out for the media. There are shifts to the media. The media is trying to respond to what I would call um, honest and fair criticisms. And I think uh, we'll see some changes in the media over the next couple of years. That'll continue. Now, let me just look at India quickly. And then we'll go on to the chart for this week. Uh, chart. Okay, we'll pull that up. And so it doesn't have any adverse Saturn transits right now. They did have an adverse Saturn transit uh, between 2020, roughly between 2023 and 2024 and 2024, 2022 and 2024, excuse me. Um, But this transit will probably change the leadership of India over the next few months. And India is in a Rahu major planetary period, so um, there seems to be a lot of Rahu's in the eighth house in India's chart. It's well placed by sign, but not well placed by house. But this can indicate new investments coming into India or new financial growth coming into India. And finally, um, more interest in um, extending its influence. But this will probably happen not this year, but next summertime. So again, I'm not saying a war between India and China is inevitable, but it's certainly a danger over the next year or so. And I certainly hope it does not happen. But and there's also a possibility, if we're looking at directions, India's enemies are Pisces, that's the northwest, so that would give Pakistan and Afghanistan. Um, so that so that's one direction to look. But also, let me just, east is, yes. And also parts of China are in the north and northwest as well. So I think you will see some land squabbles between India, China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan over the next couple of years. Uh, if I were to be specific about it, let me just date. And one of the reasons I'm focusing so much on India is because it's such a huge economy and it will be an important player over the next couple of years. So around July, there's danger of conflict in India. That's a very simple reading. And hopefully that will not happen, but there is some danger. So let's see now, let's go back to the main chart for this week. And I'm going to change the location too. Okay, so now, okay. All right, so it is, let me flip this. It's wrong. Hold on, okay. At least, oh, chart. 1 second. So right now it's November 9th. Mercury's stationary direct for the day. And we have a Capricorn rising sign right now. This is for the next week or so. So there'll be a lot of focus on self-discipline for most charts, on buying prudently and wisely. Jupiter is still direct in the chart. It's not going retrograde for another few weeks. And Venus at least is in the tenth house in the chart. So that's actually well placed. There can be some problems with governments around the world. As I've said before, this is a particularly rough time for governments just in general because of this K2 placement in Leo in the chart. It works to unseat governments or to put them in jeopardy. Um, Mercury and Mars, and this does give some jeopardy. Just to digress back to the U.S. chart, it does give some jeopardy to the Republicans' majority in 2026. But also there are a lot of establishment figures are going to be under attack. So establishment figures within the Democratic Party are going to be leaving, like Nancy Pelosi just left, or just announced her retirement, excuse me. And there are a lot of people that have been in government positions who are being investigated for crimes right now. So, and you can say that's a political prosecution, but at the same time, the investigation is still occurring. So, so in some ways, it's not, if it weren't them, it would be somebody else. And I think one of the things that's becoming interestingly obvious is that nobody's safe from prosecution, basically. That actually started under, uh, God, I would say under the Clinton administration. But if so uh, because you had things uh, like like the attack on on, on religious communities. How you feel about Waco is irrelevant. And you also had attacks on other groups during that period. So the idea of the political prosecution started in the Trump administration is incorrect. It actually occurred in um, Clinton years, in the Bush years, in Obama years, because of certain individuals were prosecuted for releasing government secrets, and is continuing in the Trump administration. So, so essentially, and again, in the George W. Bush administration, there were a lot of people being picked up um, without um, without warrants after the war on terror started. So again, again, it's important to keep these things in historical perspective and just not say, oh, because this person's in office, this is happening. This has been going on intermittently throughout most of the 20th century and even further back. It really isn't tied to one president. So I think it's important to understand that. The other thing is, at least in the chart right now, Mars is aspecting Rahu, so there's a certain amount of frustration in terms of economic growth and prosperity with that Mars Rahu aspect. Saturn's in the third house, good for self-discipline. Moon is in Gemini, so there's an urge for change. Moon will be with Jupiter tomorrow, so more people will be um, cordial, agreeable tomorrow. And for that sun, the bright spots in the chart are Venus being in its own sign and Mars being in its own sign in the house of gains. So, and Jupiter is also in the seventh house exalted. So this is not entirely a really bad chart for this week. It just does give danger to certain rising signs. So let's go on to the actual charts, the actual rising signs in the chart, our sun signs in the chart. So let's start off with Aries. Aries has yogi points in the first house. Aries is April 15th through May 15th. And this indicates a good opportunity for financial growth and financial uh, prospects at this time. Saturn's in the 12th house. It's uh, it does give unexpected expenses, maybe from bills you overlooked or forgot about. Um, Moon is in the third house, so this does give changeable goals and changeable aspirations. Jupiter's in the fourth house. There's a lot of interest in education and spiritual growth. Sun and Venus are in the seventh house. They'll attract a lot of good relationship or good-looking relationship partners or business partners. But with Mars and Mercury in this and the eighth house, this can indicate you'll attract people who will lie or deceive you. So better to take a pot around relationships, especially over the next couple of months. Uh, the 10th house Lord is in the 12th house, so career will be a little bit stymied. Rahu is in the 11th house, and that does indicate uh, frustration with gains. Now, again, something I did hear a lot about is essentially college grads having trouble getting jobs. We've been through at least two periods where that's happened. Once in the mid-1970s, and again in roughly in 7 and 2008. And those were largely connected with economic downturns. But I think one of the problems that we run into is um, college. Up until the 1970s, college was supposed to be a guarantee that you were going to be employed gainfully for the rest of your life. But that period of expectation was relatively um, recent, and there was an explosion in the 1970s, mainly because of the baby boom, and there was also an economic downturn that coincided with some of the largest classes being released. And this class right now is, I think, Gen Z is a larger demographic group um, than the baby boomers were. So what you're seeing right now is not only the idea that the college degree is not worth quite what it once was, but you're also seeing a reflection of more of the start of more people graduating than the labor force can absorb. And that title with heavy student debt is going to be a problem over the next few years. Um, so that was um, an aside, and astrologically you can kind of see that because the Rahu Moon conjunction in the U.S. chart. But it isn't hopeless. Nothing is ever hopeless. For Taurus, Taurus goes from May 15th through June 15th. Taurus has no planets in the first house. Moon is in the second house, so changeable levels of financial growth. Jupiter's exalted. The sign wants to progress very strong, very quickly. K2 is in the fourth house. There is some loss of status for the sign. And Sun and Venus are in the sixth house, so this indicates the sign wants to work hard. The Mars-Mercury conjunction, though, does indicate the sign is very susceptible to lies or misrepresentations from business partners or from a spouse. And Rahu's in the 10th house. This indicates there's some frustration with attaining work. And Saturn's in the 11th, so slow gains, so slow access to financial growth. For Gemini, Gemini has, so that was for Taurus. Gemini starts from June 15th through July 15th. The moon's in the first house, so there'll be some financial growth for this sign. Jupiter is the lord of the 10th house, so some financial gain is indicated by this particular position. Ketu is in the third house. This sign is very much more brave than it has been over the past few weeks. And Venus is in the fifth house. There'll be improved relationships with children, although children will still be kind of weak until really about another week or so. And Mars and Mercury are in the sixth house. So this does indicate some problems with the legal system or with lawsuits. But if Mars and Mercury are in conjunction, the lawyer will be successful, and you will be able to get it. You should be able to get out of any legal problems you have. Um, Seventh house lord is Jupiter. The lord of the seventh house is in the second house, so this indicates possible gains through relationship partners. And Rahu is in the ninth. Saturn's in the 10th. Increased fame, increased eminence in your field, at least for a short time. And Saturn in the 10th house does give some positive energy to career field. Four, so that's Gemini, that's from June 15th to July 15th. Cancer is the next sign. Cancer goes from July 15th to August 15th. Jupiter sits in the first house in the sign, so that's generally good luck for the sign. And it also gives financial gains to a certain extent. Moon is in the 12th house. It's not a particularly great moon, but it's not bad. So this indicates the ability to save or to put money away. K2's in the second house. There are some blocks in terms of earning or new economic opportunities, so you may wish to stay in traditional settings, at least for the time being. And let's see now, Sun and Venus are in the fourth house. Venus is in what's called Amalavya Yoga, and that's good for focusing on the home and home life. Mars is in the fifth house. There'll be some arguments or lies coming from children or from romantic partners. Seventh house, the Lord has. Seventh house has no planets in it. Um, Seventh Lord goes to the ninth house, and that indicates new luck, but relationships will move slowly. Rahu is in the eighth. Some problems from people who are dissatisfied with the existing order, and they'll want to disrupt you or shake you up a little bit. For Leo, Leo lasts from August 15th through September 15th. We have that prominent K2 in the first house. That's essentially pretty good for financial growth, but again, there can be some loss of recognition professionally, and also somebody will try to steal your ideas with that particular combination. Jupiter's in the 12th house, and this particular placement doesn't make it easier to save money. Moon is in the 11th house, good for financial gains. It's a Dana Yoga or wealth producing combination. Third house, Lord Mercury is located in the fifth house. So this indicates some increase in wealth, either due to children or creative endeavors. Sun and Venus are in the third house. I'm sorry, not through children, through family or creative endeavors. Sun and Venus are in the third house. There's an ability to charm people, great charm ability. And let's see now, Rahu's in the seventh house, so relationship partners will seem more alert, more greedy, more extroverted. And again, we have traditionalists or conservatives or those who don't want to change things, blocking the door. And let's see now. So this particular placement does indicate good financial luck for um, for Leo this month. Venus is well placed as the 11th, as the 10th house lord. The 11th house lord is well placed in the fourth house, so that should give some additional financial gains through family. I wouldn't worry about the Saturn in the eighth house. That's going to be there for a couple of years. You just better get used to some of your issues not being able to please everybody. For Virgo, which is from uh, September 15th through October 15th. We have Venus in the second house. This does give a little influx of money for this sign. Not really a big influx until sometime next week. Mars and Mercury are in the third house, so there's a strong ability to move forward or to be in good financial shape and to be aggressive about property. Rahu's in the sixth house. It can bring some dissatisfaction and some obstacles towards long-term career goals um, or rivals. Saturn's in the seventh house can indicate a spouse who's a little conservative or difficult to deal with. And that's about it. So, at least from this chart, it looks like a good week financially for Leo. You have to watch your reputation, but overall, it doesn't look. And again, no new relationship partner. Saturn in the seventh house will destroy it pretty quickly. But overall, this is not a bad week. Is in the 10th house. There may be a change in careers, and Jupiter is in the 11th house. That will give um, a good. Um, I'm sorry, I can't think of the words. That will give good potential for overcoming enemies and financial improvement. For Libra, Libra has, this is October 15th to November 15th, or Libra's ascending or moon rising. That would hold true for any of the other months that I did. So for Virgo, you would have Virgo sun, moon, or rising sign would work the same way. So for Libra rising, we have, excuse me, I got something in my eye. For Libra rising, we have a Malavia yoga forming in Libra's chart, which is good for intelligence and good for luck. Mars is forming Adani yoga in the second house, along with the ninth house lord Mercury. So you may have to go back and claim some money that's owed to you this coming week. Rahu's in the fifth house. Some difficulties with children, or seem to be having a difficult time of it. Saturn's in the sixth house, so there's some problems or restrictions with education. Um, is in the ninth house, so good for shifting career growth. And Moon and Jupiter will be in the same sign uh, over the next few days. So that should give increased financial growth and career growth to this sign. Scorpio starts from November 15th, goes to December 15th for the sun sign. We have a Ruchaka yoga in the first house, and we have a financial gains yoga in the first house as well. So Mercury is the lord of the 11th house. It produces some slight financial gains with this combination. And also, we have Rahu in the fourth house. So this will give increased status for these individuals. Saturn's in the fifth house, some difficulty with children or creative matters. And Moon is in the eighth house, so some feeling of being trapped or isolated for this sign. And Jupiter's in the ninth house, should bring improved luck. K2 is in the 10th house. It's okay for career, but the career will take unexpected directions. So it's both positive in terms of it can produce a great promotional opportunity, but it's negative and they can bring a negative energy into your life at the same time. Um, so Scorpio looks okay. Career-wise, it looks okay. Sagittarius has um, no planets in the first house. The first house lords in the eighth house. So this will make this sign very investigative, very conspiracy oriented, very untrustworthy, untrustful of authority. Um, the second house Lord is in the fourth house, so there's a lot of focus on this sign, on home life, and especially on replacing things that have outlived their usefulness. Rahu is in the third house, so the sign actually has a fair amount of financial growth possibilities from that placement. Moon is in the seventh house, can indicate changes in relationship life, but this is such a short transit that I think that's really not such an issue. And excuse me, Jupiter's in the eighth house, so this will give unexpected gains or growth. Ketu's in the ninth house, strong desire to change direction in life, and Sun and Venus are in the 11th. That's somewhat good for financial growth. And Mars and Mercury, you'll have to watch out for extra expenses for either cars or property. For Capricorn, Capricorn goes, so Sagittarius goes from December 15th to January 15th. Capricorn goes from uh, January 15th to February 15th. Has Rahu in the second house, so will give more financial incentives to this sign and uh, more ambition. Saturn is in the third house. That's good for overall career discipline. Moon is in the sixth house, so there can be some problems from females from this combination. Jupiter is in the eighth house, so again, some unexpected gains either through speculation or through investment. K2 is placed in the eighth house. You'll have to watch out for people stealing money from you in order to get investments. Um, we have Sun and Venus in the 10th house, good for career growth, and Mars and Mercury in the 11th house, so good for gains through property. For Aquarius, Rahu sits in an Aquarius sign that's going to give a lot of interest in new technology, but some frustration in terms of being able to buy new things. Saturn sits in the second house. That'll tend to underscore that. So there'll be a lot of ambition to get new things, but it'll be blocked a little bit by this sign placement. And this goes from March 15th, I'm sorry, from February 15th to March 15th. So that's for Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or rising sign. And Moon sits in the fifth house. Should be some shift in luck this week. Jupiter sits in the sixth house. Some elimination of obstacles to progress. And K2's in the seventh house. So relationship partners will seem to be unpredictable or even sometimes at times a little sick. Sun and Venus sit in the ninth house. That's a wonderful position. So relationship partners will be helpful, and it can be a good time for new relationships or for new business partnerships for this sign. Mars and Mercury are in the 10th house. Focus on things that can bring in money or can bring in financial progress for you. So essentially, with those words, we end Aquarius. And the last sign, but certainly not least, is Pisces. And Pisces lasts from March 15th to roughly April 15th. And we have Saturn in the first house, so Pisces is still under that. Um, Trying to think of a good way to put it. Not threat, it's under this control of expenses, so it'll give gains, but the sign is going to be very careful in terms of who it gives its money to. Moon is in the fourth house, a lot of focus on home life. Jupiter's in the fifth house. This is a good placement for financial growth or financial expansion. So that gives some luck Venus is in the eighth house, so some gains or temporary gains from the government. Mars and Mercury in the ninth house, some temporary gains from either um, precious metals or property. And Rahu being placed in the 12th house is very good for um, controlling expenditures, but also is this desire or this drive to um, so again, I've been warning you folks about this for a while, but this is something which will require a lot of discipline over the next year or so because that placement tends to give really strong drives to purchase new things, especially new gimmicky things. So that's it for this particular week for the individual astrological signs. Let's look at the astro map. Okay, so let's close it down. And we'll try the again. Okay, it worked this time. Okay, that's good. So again, we're seeing some disputes about property in Hawaii. I think that's ongoing from when they had the fires there. It's interesting that we have fires in both Hawaii and California, two um, highly desirable property states. And so I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just find it fascinating that among the most desirable real estate areas in the country have both had like massive fires. And apparently there was some new reports that came out this week that although they found the fellow who did uh, set the fires or confessed to setting the fires in California, there were some reports that the fires were deemed under control, but they were still smoldering underneath about a week before the major fires broke out. And they could have been, basically, they could have been beaten at that point, and they were told uh, to not report. Also, the reservoir, which feeds that particular part of the state in California, um, was not filled for about 2 years. So even though California is not showing up on this map um, with any astrological lines going through it, uh, like I said, it does tend to make you a little bit suspicious. The closest line to California is really um, California is sort of stuck between these Mars and Mercury and moon lines. And so if you look carefully, really broadly. So if we're interpreting loosely, um, there is, oh, I'm sorry, there is some indication that there have been some misrepresentations about the fires at the very least, and there may even be changes in leadership because of that, because of those. But again, that's a little bit far off. There's a sun line running through Alaska, so it looks like it's having some economic issues right now. It's because the sun is debilitated. There's a Venus line running through Montana all the way down to New Mexico and down to Mexico. And usually when you have a Venus line, you have some relatively heavy rains. So I don't know if those were in the forecast for those parts of the country, but I have heard about a major storm watch coming. Um, Let me just see now. With so that Venus line running through Canada, all the way from Canada all the way down to Mexico, could indicate some problems with flooding, especially uh, in western Texas. There's a sun line running through Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Minnesota, down all the way through Louisiana, and that sun line is indicating some problems with the governments in those states, and also it's Iowa and Missouri. Okay. Um, I was taught to say Missouri, rather than Missouri. Um, there's a descending moon line running up through um, Minnesota. So again, this could indicate some more um, governmental shifts or changes up there. Let's see now. The moon line runs up, the Jupiter line runs up through Texas and runs into Indiana and Michigan and into close to Ottawa and Ontario and not quite into Toronto. So that's more around this part of the country. But um, yeah, but the Jupiter line does indicate a new adherence to laws in those parts of the country. And we have a Mars Mercury line going through um, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So this indicates they'll be fighting or arguing about property and other issues over the next month or so. So, or the Mars Mercury line is actually coming close to Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania. So I'm expecting some kind of violent activity happening in Washington, D.C., also in Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, and all the way down into Venezuela and touching on Guyana and Peru and Chile. Uh, the excuse me, well, my voice is really bothering me today. I'm sorry, folks. Um, so that line is going all the way down to Peru and down into Chile and Argentina. And I think all those governments are a little bit um, in the red right now or in a little bit of difficulty right now. So this isn't really surprising. Um, there, through Argentina, there's a Rahu line forming up, so this can give some disinterest or disinclination to be like Brazil. And um, as we go over towards Paraguay, um, down into Argentina, it seems like there's a bit of a money um, panic happening in Brazil. Uh, so the next big lines are showing up. So Saturn. So this entire part, there's governmental scandal in Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, uh, up into Guyana. The next lines are in. There's a moon line over the Azores and close to Iceland, and there's a Jupiter line close to Iceland and close to West Africa. Ghana is down here, and so we'll talk about that in a second. But this can indicate a change in government policies for these regions, for Azores, Iceland, and Western Africa. Um, the interesting thing is we have a sun line running through Guyana and also through Morocco, and this could indicate weakness of the government or inability of the government to deliver on its actions. So the next big line we're seeing right now is the Mars-Mercury line going through Spain, Mars-Mercury and Sun line going through Spain, and coming close to England and coming close to France, and also hitting I believe it's Algeria or Libya. Uh, I hate it when I do that. I always get those two confused. Excuse me. It looks like it's hitting Algeria, or at least it's touching on them, and it's touching us. It'll probably touch Mali and all the way down to west into Western South Africa. Now there has been a lot of political violence in South Africa. There has been, so Nigeria is down here. There has been political violence in Nigeria. So it's not surprising we're seeing these lines going through here. And but we're also should expect to see some political violence in Spain, England, and France. I was looking at a map this morning that showed um, how many countries in Europe they thought immigration had gone too far, and in those countries, and the only countries that didn't show them, I believe, were Norway, Portugal, and probably that ship has probably sailed because there is an increasingly right-wing organization that's claiming more and more of the elections in Portugal. They may not have just done a survey. And one of the regions over here, I think it was. So, so essentially, most of Europe is unhappy with the immigrant situation, with the migration patterns. Okay, so that's sobering. One, two, three countries are okay with it out of all of Europe. So this is fascinating to me. So you will have this temptation to overreact, especially in Eastern Europe and as well in Western Europe in terms of political violence and potential political violence is stronger in Spain, somewhat stronger in Ireland, and about equal strength in France. So the other lines, the Rahu line does indicate a scandal going through um, Ukraine, Turkey, Eastern European countries, Egypt, Sudan, Somalia, and all the way down to South Africa. So this should be fascinating. And there's a Saturn line also going through Saudi Arabia and down into the west coast of Africa. So, or the east coast of Africa, excuse me. And that Saturn line can indicate economic pressures on those countries and difficulties with finances in those countries. There's also a moon line running through the Saturn line. This could indicate a possible attempt for either a region to split off or establish its own government, either competent or competent. Okay. Um, let's see. Other thing I want to point out with this part of the world is some some changes in government, and there will be in Iran, um, Syria, and also in places as far away as Poland, Sweden, and Finland. Um, so again, a lot of this will be connected with government scandal around the Middle East, uh, especially between especially between Turkey and Israel. And let me just see now. For we've already spoken about Saudi Arabia, things being tight financially for them this month. Um, so, So the next lines, my apologies. The next lines are, so we're moving over to India. There's a Venus line running through India. So again, we can experience heavy rains, maybe some local government splitting off from the center, but not a secession, but just maybe rebelling a little bit. And there's a sun line coming over Bengal. So this can indicate contested area. Sun lines can do that. And it borderlines into Mongolia, which is now part of, I'm sorry, not Mongolia. It borderlines into, which is now part of China. And there's a Mars-Mercury line. So essentially, um, this indicates either trade deals or some violent action uh, on China's part or on one of these other nations' part, like India, uh, Cambodia, or Myanmar. Let's see now. So this could be a war scrap as opposed to my expected year for war. Okay. Final two lines we have to get to, the final few lines we have to get to are over in, there's a Rahu line coming over China. So there should be some kind of scandal in China and also some kind of dissatisfaction in the Philippines and in Australia and Indonesia. Um, there's a Saturn line passing over Korea. So Korea's government will tend to be more punitive or more restrictive. Also, their economy will be in trouble. So will Japan's, but to a lesser extent. And so will Australia's, but to a lesser extent. There's a moon line running over Australia, and there's a Jupiter line running over the Solomon Islands and close to New Zealand. So usually what that means is that country will have a chance to expand financially or business-wise. So that's actually good news for them. But I would keep my eyes on Korea, Japan, China, and almost all of this region right here for the next few months. It doesn't mean there won't be problems anywhere else. I'm just really kind of worried about that part of the world. Okay? I'm worried about everybody who's in conflict or who has the potential for conflict. But in particular, I'm worried about that part of the world just losing their cool and saying, well, you know what? I've been insulted enough. I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay, so that's it for me for this week. I'm sorry I got a little bit sleepy towards the end there. I know it may not be the best thing to confess that, but again, I do have a cold. And so that's it for this week. If you have any questions, any comments, want to engage in a debate or a conversation, please feel free to contact me. You can leave notes in the uh, and I do read them there, folks. Okay, so that's it for this week. I'll see you next week. Have a great week, and I love you all. Thank you so much for watching, and namaste.